Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we are in the garage today. And today we're going to be working on the engine for the Corvette. Yes, you'll see this is the old engine, and yes, the new engine is over there under that box. But we'll be working on a little bit of both today. So the first part we're going to do is finish tearing down the motor. Actually, I already have, but we're just going to quickly go over what I did. So you guys will see that the baffle and pan and pickup, that's all off. The pickup tube, we're going to replace that. All the bolts and all that I've saved, so that's all been bagged and tagged. And the oil pan and the baffle itself, that needs to get cleaned out. So I'm going to clean that up in a little bit. But I made one huge discovery. Guys, I had not taken the head gasket off on this side. It was stuck to the block. If you guys look, this block really is totaled. I thought I just had a hole down the side of it. I didn't realize that it collapsed all the way from that impact spot all the way to the top where the cylinder head was. So that's something new. I had not seen that until I took the head gasket off today. We also got the harmonic balancer off over here. And two real quick notes about that. One, you're gonna need actually a Torx Plus bit. I picked up this set, it's part number 81,000 from Lyle. It's called their Torx Plus bit set. And it's like a whole set of 10, actually it's right there. So you guys can actually see the bolts as well as the hex sockets. So that came from Lyle and it worked just fine, because when I actually installed that in the car, I just kind of stripped out a couple of them using a normal Torx bit. So what I'm going to do is actually replace those bolts that I stripped out. I might actually replace all of them and just use the proper socket from now on. So that's the first note. The second note is you guys actually will be able to use the green OEM tool, the harmonic balancer puller that I removed to install this the first time. As you guys can see here, after you get the outer shell off, you can actually use that tool. Now I did have to put a 3/8 extension inside the crank. It will fit, it's not gonna mess anything up. Inside the crank, and I used the longest rod that came with that harmonic balancer puller, and it worked just fine. And as you guys can see, we were able to get the hub off as well as the outer pulley. So, you know, ATI does sell, it's like a $215 tool for that. But the guy that actually sold me the motor, Matt, he's like, yeah, go ahead and try to use the tool you already have. You might be able to make that work, and it was. Just had to use a small socket extension, stick it inside the crank, use the longest rod like I said, and I was able to use that to pull the hub off without issue. So I think that's pretty much catching up. Oh, and one last thing. This is the crank scraper that came from Improved Racing, and as you guys can see, this thing is, it's effed. There's no easy way to say that. You guys can see that's completely bent down 90 degrees. It actually tore the aluminum right there, so even if I tried to bend this straight, it's not going to be happy, and it's already cracked. And with this sitting so close to the crank, I'm afraid it would just break. You might be able to fix this one closest to the camera, this outer one right here. That might be able to be fixed, but this one with the stress cracks that's already in it, yeah, we're not going to use it. So with that being said, I actually was able to save this outer piece, because you guys noticed it in the last video. I didn't mention anything about this piece being bent. So once I got the pickup tube, that came out. There's nothing wrong with that. It just needs to be cleaned. We were able to actually save half of this Improved Racing baffle and crank scraper. Now, for some reason, they have discontinued this kit with the trap door. I'm not sure the exact reason why they discontinued it, but they still sell the crank scraper for a C5 Corvette with the Batwing oil pan. Well, guess what? C6 oil pan uses the same part number. So thankfully, that damaged piece that I just showed you, we're able to replace. I actually had already ordered it. It should be here pretty soon. So that'll be here in the next couple of days. But yeah, so that same crank scraper, I want to say they used on the C5, the C6, all the wet sump motors. I don't think it made it into the C7, just due to the fact that the C7 is a dry sump. I don't know if the crank scraper technology is any different. I'm not even sure if they offer one for that, but I do know that the C5 and C6 crank scraper is still made, and we'll be able to put this kit back together on the new motor. Oh, and one other thing. That kit is for stock rods, stock crank. Well, I have stock crank on the new motor, but I have aftermarket rods. I have K1 rods that are 6.125 inch in length, and the new kit is supposedly clearanced for those new rods. So we will see when we get that and that'll be part of the bottom end assembly. Alright guys, so that is the new motor on the engine stand. I mean, nothing too impressive, I guess. But so this is a 6-liter out of a Corvette. It is 24X. You guys can see right there, that is the reluctor wheel off a Corvette. And yeah, like I said in the previous videos, it's got ARP bolts throughout. It will have ARP bolts through the top end as well. I actually have a set of studs here. You guys can see there are forged pistons with the relief valves cut in. And on the bottom end here, you guys can see here are the K1 rods with ARP hardware like I was telling you about earlier. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the short block. And so yeah, that means that we've got a lot of stuff to assemble on this new short block. You know, we've got to put in the scraper, the baffle. We talked about that earlier in this video. We're going to use that baffle. The new scraper's on the way. We're going to use that oil pan. We've got to clean that again. And as for cam and heads, the heads are still at the machine shop. I think they are savable, at least that's what the machinist was telling me. Basically, he was going to replace 2 valves on the cylinder that blew up. Basically, both valves got bent. I think he's going to do a valve job on both of the cylinders, and then he's going to measure the springs to see if they're worn out, because the springs in the heads are like Comp Cam 9AT springs. They're super old. They're like 6 or 7 years old. But they were on a stock LS9 cam, so they weren't seeing a lot of lift. And as far as the cam, I actually just got a cam spec'd by my tuner, PCM North Carolina. So we've got a custom cam ordered. Now, I actually ordered the cam myself from Commotion. Their website said 2 to 3 weeks out. Comp cams, listening to PCM, they are 6 to 8 weeks out. So, and I think the material is the 6026. It's their harder material. So it's like $515 for the cam. And so that's on its way, should be in a couple weeks. And then that leaves the lifters and rockers. Now the rockers, I think we're going to switch over to the Comp Cams LS3 shaft mounted rocker system. I think it's like $600, something like that. And then for the rockers, I believe we're going to be using a Johnson 2116. That's basically a bar style, so we're going to eliminate the these plastic trays. We're going to eliminate that. Oh, and about those 2116, they do sell a 2126, but the problem with those is they may cause oiling issues. We do have a ported Melling aftermarket pump, and I'll be honest guys, I've read that it leads to low oil pressure, and I don't want to mess with that. So that's why I wanted the linked lifter with the 2116 Johnson, but without dealing with the oil pressure issues of the 2126. So alright guys, as you can see, we kind of have both engines wrapped up. I got the other engine on its stand, well actually the stand that this one came on, and we're going to put that away in the corner. I'm just not sure what we're going to do with that block just yet. Maybe make a table, maybe scrap it, I don't know. Unfortunately, it's got a ton of iron in it, so I can't get like, you know, 100 pounds of aluminum. There's no way to get the liners out, all that. So maybe make a table, maybe give it away. I don't know. Actually, I'm not giving that away. That would require free shipping. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, so we have our Summit Racing bag on the motor. We got the lift plate back on. And the other thing that I did was I grabbed all the NOx sensors and everything off the old motor, you know, that was on the side of the block, and put them on this block. So we're pretty much done with that old engine. Like I said, I have an LS9 cam that might be savable out of it, but we're not going to be using that on this motor. And honestly, those cams are so cheap. I think even brand new, I think I bought that cam for like $75 to $100. If I was going to sell it and ship it, it ended up being $60. It's almost not worth dealing with. So, but yeah, so we've put this motor away. We're going to put that motor away, and that is going to be it for today. Kind of unfortunate, like I said earlier, we are waiting for parts. I've got stuff in transit. I did get a couple things today, but you know, it's that order of operations. You need to do step A before you can do step B, step C, step D. So, you know, that's kind of the situation we're at. We've got some parts, but we need to get other parts in before we can do those parts that we have. So we got to play the waiting game. So if you guys like this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you guys want to see the actual future build of this new motor, hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. And if you guys want to help support the channel, check out the links down below. I'll try to include a link to the Summit Racing bag, the engine stand, the hoist, and all the stuff that we've used. So that's going to be it. Oh, also make sure you check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. Any contributions you can make there go right back into the channel, this new motor, the Corvette, etc. So thanks, guys. Have a great one.